Yo! What's good, y'all? It's your boy AJ. Welcome back to Saturday Night Frights, where we all come together as a community, watch scary horror stories, and have a good time doing this. See, you guys brought your snacks, man. You guys came prepared. I am so proud of you, man. I don't have to see my spiel again, like I always do. You brought your snacks. Hey, thanks for being prepared. And for those who didn't get your snacks, yo, go get your snacks, man. What are you doing, man? Look, I'm not here to waste any more time, so without further ado, man, let's get it.
My name is Ethan, and I'm a photographer. I took a trip last year with my wife to the Colorado mountains for an art project. My wife is also an avid skier, so she talked me into adding skiing into the trip.
I've always wanted to ski.
We had the option to book a room at a ski resort or rent out a private log cabin. The second one seemed more romantic, so I picked that one.
What y'all about to do?
Plus, it didn't hurt that it was cheaper. The cabin was nothing luxurious or anything. It was a single floor, 4-room little thing. A 2-person bedroom, a small living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It may have been small, but the actual idea of being secluded in a warm log cabin during a blizzard was amazing.
Yeah, I
However,
bet.
the storm was interfering with the cable signal, so we didn't have much to do this one particular evening. It was just starting to get dark out at this point, but there was still a decent amount of light outside, so I thought it would be perfect for getting a few shots and videos in the blizzard for backgrounds and wallpapers. I told my wife I'd be back within 10 minutes and slipped on my boots and coat. The moment I stepped outside and shut the door, I noticed footsteps leading up to the door in the snow that had blown under the wooden door. I could see the prints doubled as whoever left them there turned and went the opposite direction. I was freaked the fuck out.
Who's outside?
To go inside
in the
and
blizzard?
scare my wife. I decided to give in to my curiosity and
Well, it
followed
walked
the
around.
prints to the right side of the cabin. Right away, I noticed that they led to the bedroom window. My heart froze in fear when I saw this.
I bet.
I could see my wife sitting on the bed using her iPad. She noticed me and I waved. She laughed. I continued to follow the footprints around the cabin to the other side. They led to the living room window on the other side. Someone was stalking us. But how long ago was the question?
You have no weapon or nothing.
I found myself standing there for a good minute asking myself if I should follow the footprints anymore. For whatever reason, I decided I would. They were now leading away from the cabin. I knew I was following the prints to where this person was going, not coming from, simply by the boot marks. I followed the prints away from the opening and into the trees. That was where I saw him. A man wearing a black coat facing a tree, slouched down looking at the ground. He was still as a statue, and I could see the snow piling up on his hood and shoulders.
Nah, man.
I froze
Got like
my
8
cheeks,
knives,
trying
man.
not to make a sound. I would have thought to ask him if he needed help otherwise, but this guy was just standing there not doing anything, like some kind of deranged freak.
Throw a rock at him.
I started to gradually move backwards without even turning around, making sure this man didn't turn around or notice me. When I got at a visual distance, I turned around and stomped through the snow back to the cabin. When I slammed the door shut, my wife came over to see what was wrong. I saw worry in her eyes. I guess she saw the worry in mine. She knew I saw something, and after a few minutes of harassment, I finally told her what I saw. She immediately started packing her things, telling me we're leaving right away. I told her no, we're not going anywhere. I would not get a refund for leaving early, and I wasn't about to up and leave just because some weird guy was walking around outside.
As long as you have curtains, you should be good.
She made a point of locking both locks on the door and making sure all of the windows were sealed shut. For the rest of the night, we read stuff on our iPads. I reviewed the pictures and videos I had taken so far. We turned out the lights early as there wasn't much else to do. What if he's still out there? I remember my wife asking me. There's no way he's still out there, I then assured her. Listening to the wind blowing outside, along with the small flakes of snow hitting the windows, was strangely relaxing, and I knew I'd be able to fall asleep quickly. Except if it wasn't for...
Listen, it's outside.
The bedroom window.
You're not going. Don't go exploring.
We were both still awake, and we both knew it was a knock from a person.
Don't make any noise.
I ushered my wife
don't go check it out.
And out into the living room without turning on any lights. There was nothing to use as a weapon whatsoever, Our only option was to run before something might happen. I told my wife we'd have to forget our luggage and make a dash for the Jeep.
What?
We slipped on our boots and coats in the dark in a matter of seconds, and when we heard a knock at the living room window from the opposite side of our car, we took that opportunity to run.
Bro, y'all could have
Pressed
stayed.
the unlock button, so grateful I chose to have remote locks on my Wrangler, and we hopped in. The car started with ease, and as soon as the headlights flashed on, the man was standing facing the log cabin on our side now. Not a window, just facing the wall of the cabin in the same position.
That dude
I'd
is a
seen him
weirdo.
earlier, as if he were hiding his face. We drove to the nearby ski resort without much trouble in the Jeep. We stayed there for the night and went back the next day to the log cabin to collect our things we left behind. He wasn't there.
Y'all could have stayed though. Like, if he broke glass trying to get in, then you can go. But bro, he was just knocking. Bro, I would have stayed, man. If he broke the window, now I'm going to beat him up. You know what I'm saying?
I'm 27 years old. I live alone in a rural town in Virginia, about 2 blocks away from my parents. My parents are both in their 60s, and my mom has become a very worrisome woman in her old age. Sometimes she walks over uninvited and lets herself in, since I had regrettably given her a key, which can get a bit annoying. Like if I would be out really late on weekends at a bar or with women, I would sometimes come home to my mom sitting in the living room waiting, worried sick. I know you may just think, oh my god, that's crazy, why not just put your foot down and tell her to stop? Well, because you don't know my mom. It's very hard to describe her, but she's the kind of worrisome, innocent little lady that you just can't bring yourself to go against. And I hate to mention
Hey, sorry, mom. I'm 27. I can come home whenever I want to. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to deal with it, man.
she also has mild dementia. Anyway, this was Saturday night. I think it was around 2 in the morning. I was at a nearby club with a group of college friends.
Oh,
The only place to hang
look
out
at
in
her.
Warrentown.
Oh, hold
And I
up.
was getting
You know what I'm
ready to head
saying?
home. I said goodbye to all my friends and walked the 3 blocks it took to get back to my house.
Walking in the
I
rain?
walked up my front stoop in my drunken haze and dug my hand in my pocket for my keys. When I grabbed the doorknob, I realized it was unlocked. My mom was here again. I quietly opened and shut the front door, locking it behind me. I put my keys on the kitchen counter and found a note written in my mom's handwriting saying, "You forgot this at our house, next to the box of half-eaten cake my parents didn't want."
Kate look
I
kind of
didn't see my
good.
mom anywhere, so I assumed she must have gone upstairs to sleep in the guest bed until I got back, which is something she would commonly do as well. Then I heard footsteps upstairs, confirming it, and that's when I sighed once again. 27 years old, almost 3 in the morning.
That is crazy,
She
man.
still has to wait up and treat me like a child.
Damn.
I ran upstairs to check the guest bed, empty, along with all the bathrooms. I was afraid Mom was having one of her episodes due to her condition, so I ran to the phone to call my dad. After 4 rings, my dad picked up in a groggy voice, asking what the hell is the matter. After I told him that I heard Mom wandering around upstairs in my house, there was a short pause, and then he said, "That's not possible, she's sleeping right next to me."
Oh.
My mouth fell open as I turned my head to face the dark upstairs, and just barely by the light provided by the kitchen, I could see a head peering around from the corner at the top of the stairs, looking down at me.
Gotta grab all reliable.
I screamed into the phone as I ran out the front door and down the street to my parents'
Grab
house,
all
explaining
reliable.
to my father on the way. About halfway there, my dad told me, "Alright, I'm gonna call the cops," and hung up.
All right. Thanks, Dad.
I made it to my parents' house, where my mom was already waiting at the door, worried sick. My mom explained that she did come over to clean my kitchen a little bit and to bring over the cake they didn't want. 2 police cars pulled up in front of my parents' house, where they escorted me and my dad down the street to my house. 1 officer stayed outside with us, while 2 others went inside to investigate. It felt like 15 minutes before they came back outside and said it was clear.
Of course it
They
is.
checked the crawl
Yeah,
space,
plenty
the
of time to
attic,
go away.
everything. There was really nothing for me to report, other than the door was left unlocked and I saw the outline of a head upstairs before I ran for it. Still, I didn't feel safe sleeping in there that night, so I went back to my parents' house. Me and my dad are certain that my mom simply forgot to lock the door when she left, as her memory has been getting worse over the past few months. My dad has been stopping her from coming over alone from now on, which makes me both sad but also relieved.
Good.
Some nights I still get paranoid that whoever was in my house that night
Bro,
never left.
I will never stay
and
there.
is still hiding in here somewhere.
After that situation, man, I would not trust staying there, bro. Like, they never even caught him. He could still be in there. Dude, no, freak that. School lockdown stories. I hated school lockdowns, man.
It was a typical boring day in calculus, only it was Friday, 7th period, meaning the week was almost over and spring break would finally be upon us. So everybody was getting antsy in their seats, I could tell. We didn't have a test that day like a lot of my friends did with their other teachers.
That's
so
tough.
our teacher in the middle of class just decided to start playing games with us on Sporkle.com.
What's
He
that?
was a very laid-back teacher like that. As we were doing some brand logo quiz on Sporkle, I remember the exact moment it happened. Right after my friend answered a question, I remember the exact answer too, Adidas. The dean's voice came through the loudspeaker. He sounded panicked and frantic as he told all the teachers this was not a drill and to go into lockdown. I actually got the chills and I got goosebumps on my arms as our usually laid-back teacher too seemed panicked as he ran to turn off the lights and ushered us to the back corner of the room. We all sat in silence for about 2 minutes, and then the usual buzzing that came from a panel in the back of the room ceased, indicating that the school must have cut all the power. We all looked at each other, realizing this must be serious. A few more minutes of waiting later, we heard a man screaming at the top of his lungs coming down the hallway. 2 girls in the class actually started crying, which made all of us even more scared. As the screaming got closer to the classroom, the lunatic-sounding man started banging on the lockers while screaming, "I'll kill all of you."
This dude is a
It
maniac,
was
bro.
at that moment that I started to fear for my life. My teacher shushed us as we all looked at each other to see our peers' reactions. The banging then moved from the lockers to our classroom door. And that's when one of the crying girls screamed no.
Bro, come on, bro. Now we're all dead, bro. Why would you say no? Like, bro. Look, I understand you're scared, but bro, come on. You gotta be quiet. Dude.
The banging on the door only grew worse.
Now you
as
know
the
y'all
man
in there
started
now.
Screaming, "Open up."
Ew, I do look ugly.
Class were crying out loud now. It felt like an eternity that man was pounding at the door. But eventually, he finally continued down the hallway, screaming like a mentally insane person until we could not hear him anymore. I'd say 10 minutes later, though it felt like half an hour given the situation, the dean came back on the loudspeaker explaining the situation, which was surprising for him to do. He explained that some apparently mentally unstable person entered the building and assaulted the woman sitting at the front desk, causing her to flee the building screaming, and staff wasn't sure if the man was armed or not.
He's definitely
Now,
armed.
this was before the school had cameras or could afford proper security.
You got
so the
cameras?
school was wide open to something like this happening.
Yo.
The staff had done a sweep of all the hallways and classrooms and couldn't find him, so the dean instructed the teachers to resume teaching but to keep all the doors locked and to not let any students leave for any reasons.
Man.
The most disturbing part, however, is that one of the janitors working the night shift found the man sleeping in one of the storage closets near the back end of the school, and according to rumors that were spread by my peers, sticking out of his pocket was a .44 Magnum.
Good old reliable, man.
The janitor must have done something stupid to wake him up, for example, leaving the closet door open, because by the time a police officer could arrive on the scene, the man was gone. My entire class, as far as I know, to this day, has no idea if this man was ever found, but I like to think that right now, he's being given the proper help that he needs.
If I was that janitor, man, I would have took that wet, dirty mop and then put it all over his face. And I would have locked the door. Hitchhiking horror stories. Yo, be careful with hitchhiking, man. Only do it if you absolutely
3
need to.
months after I turned 16 in 2005, I got my first car, a '99 Toyota Camry. On a warm Saturday night, when my friend Alex invited me over to one of his friend's big parties, I knew I wouldn't be in a condition to drive the Camry home afterward. So we carpooled with Alex's girlfriend, Brianna. We lived in the countryside of Virginia, meaning less big parties. Meaning when there was a big party, it was a huge deal and everyone would go. We lived about 5 to 10 minutes away from this kid's house. I knew where he lived as I was acquainted with him, but not exactly friends. The
I
whole
wouldn't
ride
go.
there, we took the same 2-lane highway type road through the woods, and this kid's house was actually on this road further down. At certain points on this road, there were a few houses on either side, and then it would just go back to being a long, empty highway again. The house was tiny, like a lot of houses around the area, but the party was held outside anyways, since his closest neighbors were relatively far away, and noise wasn't an issue. I'll skip most of the party up until the point that Brianna, who was supposed to be our designated driver, had to suddenly leave for a small family emergency. Alex said it was fine and that we'd find a ride home. Well, fast forward another few hours and another few drinks, and I could barely even walk straight. I checked my watch, and it was like 2 in the morning. I figured it was time to go. I started looking for Alex, but I couldn't find him anywhere.
Didn't you leave with his
It seemed
girlfriend?
like everybody I knew had already left. I could barely even think straight, but I was still furious at the fact that Alex could have actually left without me. I asked to use the party host's phone and dialed Alex's home number. After 2 tries, I gave up and then realized I shouldn't wake his family up. So, literally not knowing what else to do, I dizzily stepped out onto the road and began walking back home. I knew this walk would take anywhere from half an hour to an hour in my condition.
Dang.
Maybe after 15 minutes of walking down the road, the slight shine of car headlights on the road was fading in from behind me. Jumping for joy inside, I lifted up my arm and stuck out my thumb.
Bad idea.
As the car neared, it slowed down and came to a stop right next to me. The man driving the '98 Ford Explorer rolled down the window and asked where you headed. I told him my house was just down the road and beyond a right turn, probably slurring my words beyond comprehension. He chuckled and told me to hop in.
You look like Superman a little
I thanked
bit.
him and joyously hopped into the truck. I was exhausted, and I remember completely disregarding things the guy was asking me because I was so close to just passing out. And that's what happened. The memories
Why would you go to
that truck turned to a fog, as I'm sure I passed out.
You've been touched. You've been probably licked. He did anything he
Next
wanted
thing
to
I
you, man, while you
remember,
was asleep.
I woke up, still in the moving truck. The guy looked at me and laughed.
Look,
but
why are you
didn't
looking
say
like that?
anything. I looked around and realized the road we were on wasn't familiar. I nervously asked, where are we going? He then said, so what were you doing out this late anyway?
Answer my question. Freak that.
As the man answered my very straightforward question with another irrelevant question, the sobering reality of the situation hit me. You can let me out anywhere, I told the man. The man responded with a firm no.
No. But
I
free.
felt like throwing up as he said that.
Would have jumped out the
No,
window.
I really actually felt like I was going to throw up. I started to gag as I felt more and more nauseous by the second. The man took his eyes off the road to look at me, and that's when I thought of the perfect distraction. I turned in his direction as I continued to gag, and he started to kind of lean away and slow down the car.
You threw up on
Thankfully, I
him.
drank as much as I did because I finally threw up and made a point of doing it all over the man's lap. The man yelled in frustration and stopped the car, and that's when I took it upon myself to run for my life into the woods.
Sucker
and
didn't
duck
even lock the
behind
door.
a few bushes. The man came following into the woods with a flashlight, and on 2 separate occasions, he shined the light straight over me without noticing. Eventually, I heard his footsteps walk even further into the woods past me. That was when I ran back to his truck, but unfortunately, he was smart enough to lock it.
About to take his truck.
By some miracle, I saw another car approaching in the distance, and I ran out into the middle of the
Bro,
street,
get the tag
waving
number.
my arms like a lunatic. The car tried to avoid me, but I wouldn't let it. They were forced to stop, and I yelled at them to help me before they came back. Once I told them that I was kidnapped by the man who was driving that Ford Explorer, the driver agreed to give me a lift. Not to the police station or anything, but to my house. I made it
Should've
back
got the
safely,
tag
but
number.
I couldn't thank the driver enough. I immediately woke up my parents and told them. My dad wanted to know if I got his tag number,
Exactly.
and then I felt like punching myself in the face.
Bro,
I
slacking,
failed
man.
to get the simplest information from the guy that would have allowed me to actually properly report him. All I knew was that he drove a faded blue '99 Ford Explorer.
It looked like it was red.
I made sure to give Alex a piece of my mind, and part of me always held a grudge against him ever since.
Yeah, we're not friends no more.
Abandoning me at a party without telling me.
We're not friends no more.
I haven't seen him in 4 years now, however, and this was actually the first time I even thought about this incident for almost a year now. As time goes on, even the worst of memories may start to fade. But after writing this to share with the internet, it's once again fresh in my mind.
Yeah, me and Buddy ain't friends no more. How's you gonna leave me like that? And you know, like, we're getting drunk and everything. Like, bro, do not drink, kids. Do not drink. Drinking is bad. House sitting horror stories. Have I ever house sat before? I did once. I mean, it was pretty cool. I was like, I think I was like 13.
A couple weeks ago, my dad came home and pitched me a small job offer. One of his coworkers was going away for a few days and needed somebody he could trust to watch over his house. The reason my dad pitched this to me was because the man's house has a big CCTV system, basically a camera in every room, and then an operating desk where all screens could be watched on a big monitor.
Oh, that's a
And I'm a
purpose.
computer science major, so my dad just always assumes that I know how to work anything technological.
I know how that feels.
The man told my dad that he'd pay me $200 for the 2 days just to watch the house.
$200?
Whatever that meant.
Yeah,
My dad
$600.
drove me to the house and introduced me to the man, whose name doesn't matter.
It's all
The
good.
man
It's
made it
all
seem
good.
Like he preferred I stay in the upstairs room with the
Welcome.
monitors as opposed to roaming the house all day. That was fine with me though. So when I wasn't eating, I was mostly just sitting in that room with the TV on in the background and doing schoolwork on my laptop. Ironically, the thing I was doing the least was keeping an eye on the monitors. Night came. I started wondering where in the house I should sleep, since surprisingly we hadn't discussed that. So I sat back down at the desk and looked at all the different rooms on the screens to see which rooms had beds or couches. I noticed something I wasn't expecting to notice though. The back screen door was open downstairs.
Open?
I didn't remember it being open. I looked through each and every camera screen in a panic. In the living room, a closet door was open. This one I knew wasn't open earlier.
Time to
I
stay in that
texted
room.
my dad to call the man and ask him if he came back home. Meanwhile, I continued watching the screen. On the grainy, dark image, a tall person who resembled only a black shadow on the screen stepped out from the closet. I pulled my arms off the desk as I covered my mouth with my hands in shock. As I did this, however, my left elbow pulled some heavy object from the desk onto the floor, creating a big thud.
Come on,
The
man.
image very clearly moved
Rookie
the
mistake.
head up to the ceiling as a response to the noise. They went for the stairs, walking up very, very slowly, step by step. Meanwhile, I got a text back from my dad saying, "No, he's not. I just spoke to him half an hour ago. Why?"
Somebody's
I got
in the
so
house.
caught up in my phone texting my dad to send help that I didn't even pay attention to the monitor. There was a knock at the door.
Oh, nah.
I
Don't make
looked at
any
it
noise.
And then the screens. The first screen I laid my eyes on was the one showing the person outside the door to the room I was in. When I remembered that door had no lock,
No
the
lock?
only thing I could think to do was jump out the window into the bushes below.
Yo.
I ran halfway down the block and then stopped when my dad called me. I had him call his friend and ask him if he was expecting somebody in the house. The man said he had no relatives or friends who had his key or would ever let themselves into his home.
Bro.
So he called the cops and had them review the footage. I got to watch all of it, and it showed everything. From the moment the intruder broke the glass to the backyard door, to the moment I jumped out the window and him running away shortly after. The intruder was never found. The footage was just too dark to identify his face.
Do I still get my $200 though? That's the real question. So like you have a little cold, get that toddy. I feeling 90% better. I've been drinking hot tea with lemon and ginger all day.
I was spending a weekend with my uncle on his ranch when my parents were renovating the new house we had just bought. It was my second night there, a Saturday, and it happened to be during one of the biggest
Is that
thunderstorms
Mario?
of the year.
Bro,
I'd
that's
say there were
Mario.
At least 3 crashes of thunder
Where's
and
Luigi
lightning
at?
per minute. And we were in the heart of the storm because the thunder would crash not even a second after the lightning would. I always enjoyed listening to storms while laying in bed, so I stayed up a little later watching TV, just enjoying the ambiance. After the movie I was watching finally ended, I turned off the TV and tried to fall asleep.
Whoa. Wait, that didn't sound
As I heard
right.
the lightning strike from outside, I could have sworn I heard some kind of metallic thud coming from outside at the same time. I didn't pay it too much mind.
I know I heard something.
20 seconds later,
Nah.
I could have sworn I heard it again.
Somebody said
A
something
very
metal.
distinct metallic thud coming from outside to match the timing of the lightning. I really don't mean to make this sound like a cliche horror story, but my uncle really is a kind of creepy guy, and I was never close with him even remotely. So for that reason, I didn't feel
that's
like
Mario.
to wake him up. I just tried to forget about it.
Yo.
Now I was getting concerned. What the hell could that be? After the third time, I finally got out of bed and walked over to the window of the guest bedroom. The water pouring down on the window made it extra hard to see what was out there in the dark fields. A flash of lightning momentarily lit up the
Dude trying to be
property,
slick.
but I couldn't see anything. However, once again, the sound of a metal hit accompanied it. The sound was so close now, it sounded like it was coming from the left of the window at a blind spot. I was going to do something I knew my uncle wouldn't be happy about.
What you about to do, man?
It would be a bit messy, but I was going to open the window and
Why?
go outside to see if I could see what the sound was.
Why? It's raining, and
I
that's
unhooked the window lock
a
and
dumb
slid
idea.
it up, and immediately the wind of the storm blew drops of rain into the room and onto me. I stuck my head out the window and looked to the left, and at that very moment, lightning lit up the property once again, and I could see a person dressed in all black crouched down by the outside basement door.
He didn't hit
with his
the
hand
metal.
raised in the air. And before the sky went dark, I caught the briefest glimpse of what the sound was coming from. The person was bashing at the basement door lock. I pulled my head in and quietly shut the window, making sure to lock it. I was in a panic.
Just gotta look.
I feared he might have seen or heard me. I ran back to bed and
I would've went back
pretended
to
be
sleep.
asleep, facing away from the window. Lightning crashed once again, but this time there was no metallic thud. My heart must have dropped as I realized this. I just stayed put in bed for the longest time, hoping whoever was out there would go away. After maybe 3 more lightning crashes without any thuds accompanying
What was
I thought
that?
it would be safe to go tell my uncle. I turned to face the window and screamed. There was a figure, clear as day, standing at the window, looking in at me. I screamed as loud as I could and ran straight to my uncle's room. He went outside with his hunting rifle with nothing on but his pajamas
Hey, look at Mario.
and socks. He ran around the entire property yelling like a madman, but didn't find anyone. The next morning, we were able to better see the marks on the basement door lock. It was almost bashed open. Maybe 3 or 4 more good hits would have done it, according to my uncle. He was proud of me for picking up on it. Luckily, I was out of there that same day. My uncle hasn't told us of any incidents since. So
He
I
still
think
live
he's been
there?
Okay. Not that we talked to him much at all. I'm
Man.
grateful I stayed up a little later that night watching that movie, because I may have just stopped a robbery, or possibly much worse.
You did everything right, but you should never open the window. And then you got in bed all wet. Now your sheets and covers are soiled. Disturbing true Snapchat stories. Haven't used Snapchat in so long.
This happened a week ago. Up until a few days ago, I went to a small, local gym in my now previous New Jersey town called Black Bear Fitness. One day, I had the misfortune of running into some skinny,
Bro.
awkward, yet creepy-looking
Bro, he look like he don't belong in the gym. Bro, look at his shoes. That's not even his shoes. He's wearing socks. Bro,
kid, probably 18 years old.
socks with sandals. I
He didn't
mean,
look like he belonged in a gym at all.
I just said that.
I had headphones in and I was doing my set when I heard him saying something
Yo,
to me.
did he walk barefoot then put the sandals on? Dude,
It was muffled by the music.
he just looks
I was
off.
already annoyed with this kid, given that he was breaking an unwritten rule of the gym. Don't try to talk to somebody when they're doing their sets.
That's facts. I hate
I
when people
took
do
my
that.
time finishing my set, and then took my headphones out to ask if he needed something. Then he started acting like I looked familiar, but right away I knew this kid was just trying some pathetic attempt at making friends. I assured him
Sucker,
I
I don't
didn't,
know
but
you.
the kid wouldn't stop talking to me. I'll skip most of the conversation, but eventually he actually asked me for my Instagram and Snapchat, weirdly enough, and for whatever reason I gave them to him.
Why,
Instead
man?
of just saying something like, buddy, I'm trying to work out, or I don't have social media.
That's what I would have said.
After I gave him my Snapchat and Instagram, however, I did kind of urge him to let me resume my workout. He finally seemed to get the message and walked away. Not without saying bye like 3 times though.
I would have dropped the weight on his foot.
That night I got a snap on my phone
Yeah, I was
saying
speaking
from
facts.
Sean. I immediately sighed and said, "Oh,
Why? Exactly.
just wondering why the hell the kid would snap me." I opened the snap.
Ugh.
The kid was
Oh,
in a
no,
creepy,
man.
weird pose.
Bro, you're
Face
getting
way
blocked.
too close to the camera, with his head resting in his hand and a half smile on his face.
That dude is for sure getting blocked.
The text over the picture was "Hey." with
I don't want a
2
picture like
Ys.
that.
I muttered the words, "What the fuck?" For the record, I'm a guy, which made this even more weird. My thought process was, I've had enough of this loser already. I'm gonna remove him and make it clear I don't want to talk if I see him at the gym again. And so I did. I removed him minutes after he sent that snap.
Good.
I'm sure not
What?
even a minute later, again, a message popped up on my phone saying Snapchat from Sean.
You didn't block
I
him?
waited a few minutes before opening it. This one was even creepier. Now the kid was sitting up on his bed, no
Ooh.
smile, more of a surprised, angry expression.
Why did you remove me?
The text over the image said, "Why did you remove me?"
Bro, you weird.
Now I
That's
went as
why.
far as to block him, meaning he couldn't snap me anymore.
You should have been blocked him.
And that was that. I threw my phone on the desk and sighed out of relief. Half an hour later, my phone goes off.
Wait, hold
saying,
on.
"Sean added you."
Did you go in your room and then leave the phone in the living room? And then you walked out the room as soon as you heard. How did you hear that? Like, bro, that sound isn't that loud. Like, there's no way you
as
heard
a
that.
friend, and then Snapchat from Sean.
This Sean dude is creepy,
He
man.
actually made a new account. I opened the snap and felt my heart drop.
Is that his
It was
house?
a picture of my front lawn.
Bro,
The text over it, "Answer me, bitch."
bro.
The first thing I could think of was, how did he find my address? Then I realized, Snapchat made that new map feature that lets you see where your friends
Oh,
are.
I forgot about that.
Somehow I had the balls to open the window to see outside. It was clear out there. I shut the window and the blinds and started considering calling 911.
Ooh.
It was the sound of taps on the window. I took a deep breath, and with one swift motion, I pulled up the blind and the window at the same time and pulled the kid into my room by his
Ooh.
neck.
Good.
I
Bro,
punched him in the face a few times before he was out cold. Now I called 911.
that's what he deserves, being a weirdo.
By the time they arrived, he was awake, cursing me out, promising he'd be back and kill me. The cops heard it all. I didn't even have to make a case. The kid was an idiot.
He really
Luckily,
was.
The timing of this worked out well because I just moved a couple days ago out of state. Only thing that worries me, I don't want to have to make a new Snapchat account, but anytime somebody new adds me on the app, I'll never know if it's secretly that Sean.
That is definitely Sean. Dang. Yeah, that Sean dude is really... He's a maniac, man. Scary vacation stories too. At Halloween.
I was vacationing in the Bahamas when I was 14 with some
Ooh,
family
that looks
friends.
beautiful.
My friend and I were getting some henna tattoos at the hotel, and there was this guy lingering around us. But we
Ugh.
didn't think much of it because a lot of people would stop to see what was going on. After mine was done, I told my friend and her mom I was going to go back to the room to get ready for dinner. There were 2 ways to the other side of the hotel, either inside through a bunch of small stores or outside along the pool. I walked through the inside and got
Yeah,
to
you're
the
in a lot of
elevator,
trouble.
where I saw the guy who had been watching us already at the elevator. We got up
That dude
together,
looked like he's
and
up to
he
no
gestured
good.
for me to choose my floor
Bro,
button.
would y'all trust this guy, man? Like a dude that looks like this? Like me personally, no. If we was going in the same elevator, I would have like not went in there with him. I would have let him go in there by himself, and then just wait until it's empty. I will not go in the same elevator as this dude.
Button first. I clicked it, but he didn't choose another floor. Alarms
Of course he
started
didn't.
going off in my head. But what could I do? I was stuck in an elevator.
G, the ground floor. Look at this dude, bro.
The elevator stopped on my floor, and I started walking to my room.
Bro,
In this hotel,
She's about to
most of the
follow her.
rooms face the ocean, so to the right in this hallway were just windows. I was in the very last room on that floor, and I could see the guy following me about 10 feet behind.
look, bro.
About 2 doors from my room, he ran up and grabbed me. I kicked
Bro.
and screamed, and he dropped onto the floor. I ran to the room and locked myself in. After talking with security and giving a description, they found the guy and found out that he had actually been following multiple younger women in the building.
Bro. Instead of just harassing girls, man, just talk to them, man. You don't... Bro, this dude really out here trying to... He think that's the method for real, man. My senses were not... Exactly, man. That dude, like, he was so creepy looking. I could just tell sometimes that they're up to no good.
Back in high school, I took a mysteries and mythology type class, or something like that. I don't remember.
What's going on with the frog, man?
It basically just had to do with real life mysteries and creepy shit. I was into that kind of stuff. I was taking the class with a good friend, who I'll call Ben for this story. The
Okay,
teacher
Ben.
of the class took us on a field trip to a nearby abandoned village with an unknown past. The village was built in the early 1900s, but seems as though it had been quickly abandoned shortly after it was built. The bus ride there was about 20 minutes. All of us were glued to the bus windows as we pulled up some sketchy-looking, decrepit road cutting through dense forest.
Look at the people in the background.
The road eventually led to a clearing. We were there. We stepped out onto the road, which had grass growing through the cracks. The grass surrounding was almost knee-high. Then there were the buildings. The tall, archaic brick buildings with the boarded-up windows all
Bro,
gave
what kind of field trip is this, man? This is the most whack field trip, man. This is the field trip? Old, abandoned, haunted, possibly, like, houses? Yo,
off such chilling
so
vibes.
whack and scary.
The teacher lined all 20 of us up, counted heads, and then began leading the way. The point of this little field trip was to use the so-called skills we learned in class to see if we could put anything together about why the village may have been abandoned so long ago. Some of the buildings had holes in the walls. to
Just
serve
give me an
as
F, man.
entryways.
Give me an
There
F.
were even holes in the ground next to some of the buildings, seemingly dug to get into the basements of some of the buildings, which seemed creepy. There was one building though. It stood taller than any of the others. It just intrigued me the most. While the teacher was leading the group towards the village church, Ben and I decided to sneak off on our own to look for anything interesting.
Of course you are.
When we walked off in the direction of the tallest building, we saw a hole in the ground. It was dug by the back door of the building, which had been sealed off. In the hole was a ladder, which led down to the concrete floor below.
That makeshift,
We
like,
both looked at
ladder.
each other and knew we had to do it. Ben climbed down first, then me.
I mean, kids will be
Luckily,
kids,
this
man.
was just around the time Apple started putting flashlights on their phones, so we had a source of light. It was creepy down there.
There is nothing.
There were a couple of beer bottles, one graffiti tag on the wall, and dusty wooden planks everywhere. There was a wooden stairway which led up to complete darkness, since all windows and doors had been sealed shut from above. We had already gone as far as to enter the building, so we figured we'd go up the stairs too.
That's not a good
I
idea.
went first, and with each step, the creakiness of the 100-year-old wood made me feel as if I was going to fall through each and every step. Ben followed suit. This floor of the building was very tight. It seemed like there were many openings going off into different, smaller rooms. It was so dark in there, you would never even guess it was daytime.
You have
Ben
no
and I
lights
were
or
honestly
anything.
starting to get creeped out in there, and agreed to go back outside.
And I know it's cold in there too.
But just then, there was a noise in one of the tiny rooms. like a big rock hitting the concrete floor.
Nah, that sounded like somebody
normal
fell.
instinct would be to run,
Somebody fell.
but Ben and I froze, locked eyes for a moment, then both tiptoed over to the opening of the room.
And you going towards it?
We shined the lights into the room and ran. We ran back down the stairs
What'd you
and then
see?
up the rusty ladder back outside. We caught up to the group out of breath. We didn't say anything though to avoid getting in trouble. One of our classmates asked us what was wrong. We told him we snuck into one of the buildings, and in one of the rooms, when we shined the light into it, we saw 3 guys standing maybe 10 feet away from the doorway,
Ugh.
facing Ben and I in a weird formation, as if they were waiting for us.
Oh. Look like they haven't
As we
slept in
continued
decades.
Following the group, we paid extra attention to the tall building we entered from the distance. And before leaving, we saw a person's face at one of the higher level windows that had not been boarded up. We never told the teacher
That's a squatter.
of getting in trouble. We didn't know what to think. Were those just homeless people living in there? Were they
Probably.
gang members in hiding? Ben freaks me out with his theory. He says they were ghosts of the people who once lived in the town.
Are you
Still,
sure?
the way the 3 guys were just hauntingly standing there so calmly, staring at us the moment we peeked our heads through that doorway, I still can't get that image out of my head.
But look at the one on the left.
I may go back to that village one day, just
Why?
to prove Ben's idea wrong.
Why would you want to go back, bro? He actually went back? What happened to like staying curious? And he was never seen again. A Christmas Eve horror story. Once again, I hope you guys had an amazing Christmas. Have fun with family and friends. Had good food. Got everything you wanted. And had good times, man.
Last year on Christmas Eve, I was working late. I'm 23. I work in New York City and commute home every day on the train. Since I'm one of the younger ones in the office, I got stuck with one of the worst shifts, so I wasn't able to get home until 5 o'clock. My family had already left a whole hour earlier to go to my cousin's house, so I had to drive alone. After having a quick snack before the half-hour drive, I got back in my car and put my cousin's address into my phone. Halfway through the drive, it started snowing.
Thank you, I did.
I got to my cousin's
I was kind of
house around
sick, but
6 o'clock.
it was still
snowing
good
heavily
though.
by this point, and I just made it in time to catch everyone starting dinner. I brought all of my gifts inside and cheerfully said hey to everyone. I stayed until around 11 o'clock. The rest of my family left a little sooner. I stayed an extra half hour or so just to hang out before leaving myself. By the time I was leaving, the ground had accumulated at least 2 feet of snow, and it wasn't even done snowing.
I've never seen snow before.
The
I
drive
want to see
home
snow.
was nightmarish. The roads were hardly even plowed, and I had to drive under 20 miles per hour on most roads.
Oh,
The
the
roads
roads
were
are
completely
icy.
dead at this point, though. Most likely because everyone was smart enough to go home before the snow accumulated. Eventually, I turned onto a main road that I'm sure would usually be bustling, but at 11:15 on Christmas Eve night, there wasn't a single car or a single light from a store. It was a ghost town. But then I did notice the flashing taillights of one car. It was
Drive around
on the
them.
side of the road, and the
Don't
smoke
stop.
seeping out from its exhaust with the taillights giving it a
Never
red
seen
tint.
snow. I've never seen
As
snow.
I got closer,
It never snows
I
in
realized
Florida.
There was somebody next to the car waving
It's always
their hand
hot.
in the air. I assumed something was wrong and they needed help. So, me being the good Samaritan I am, I pulled up behind the car. When I opened my door, the guy
Go to
approached me
Michigan?
immediately,
You see?
barely even giving me
I was thinking about going to Michigan one day. Michigan, like that's one of the places I wanted to go. Like I want to travel all over the United States and the world. I want to explore nature and everything, see snow, do things I never did before. That's my goal. That's my dream.
time to step out. He was an average-sized man, probably 5'10", 180 pounds. He spoke in a very demanding voice.
I gotta go see
asking me
snow.
if I know anything about fixing an engine. I told him I didn't know much.
Is
about
that Santa
cars.
Claus?
The guy responded very quickly to everything I said. He told me it's fine. He went inside of his car for a second, popped open his trunk, came back out, and told me to just wait by the trunk for a second.
Ann Arbor, is that in Michigan?
Me to do. I was really confused. He walked over to the front of his car, and I heard him open the hood. I couldn't see anything he was doing since the trunk was blocking my view, and the loud wind of the snowstorm overpowered any small noises he might have been making. I put my hand on the back of the car and leaned my body in anticipation, when suddenly I heard 3 or 4 quick and aggressive footsteps in the snow behind me before I was
Oh, gotcha.
They
Whoa!
had tried to close the trunk on me, but I kicked my feet up in resistance.
Bro, what is Santa Claus doing?
I was able to overpower them and kick the trunk open completely.
If somebody's on the side of the road, I know it's a good idea to help them, but bro, dude, I would have just kept it pushing, man. I would have like went on about my day. Like, bro, and did they look like this? Nah, man, nah.
As I took advantage of the few seconds I had to get out of the trunk, I took out my keys.
Nice college town. Yeah, I definitely got to go over there.
And I dug my house key right into his neck.
Oh.
He fell to his knees and his scream echoed down the deserted street. I was in my car and halfway down the road before he could even get up from his knees. A little further down, I called 911 and reported the guy. I came back in 10 minutes to find blue and red lights illuminating the windows of the deserted stores. The police held him until the ambulance arrived for him. I watched the whole thing, and nothing ever felt better in my life. I got home safely half an hour later and told my family everything. I was still very shaken that Christmas, and this remains possibly the most horrific thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah, so you stabbed somebody, bro. I can't see myself stabbing nobody. Like, I can't. That's got to be like a, I don't know, it's like weird. It's gonna be the last video, y'all. It's an hour long. Let's get it.
This happened about 5 years ago when I was 21. Me and my friend Seth got into this app which showed you ghosts. We'd go out ghost hunting, but nothing much would happen. Sometimes a dot would appear
Toronto, Canada. Oh, Canada too.
Say random words. We would ask, "How did you die?" and stuff like that. And sometimes the answers lined up, but it was.
You know where else I want to go to? In Canada, you know how they got like all the islands like north. I want to go to the last one, like all the way up north. You know what I'm saying? I want to go all the way over there. I want to see the polar bears, the penguins.
Random.
Well, I don't want to see the polar bears.
2 a.m.
They can smell you from miles away. Nah, I'm actually scared of polar bears. I take that back. I still want to go up there though.
Suggested going to the cemetery to see if the app picked anything up. I was hesitant, but I nervously agreed. We started making our way through the neighborhood towards the cemetery. It was weird as the streets are normally lined with cars, but they were empty on this night. We walked down the middle of the road with the app running, but it wasn't picking anything up.
This whole thing is a bad idea.
We made it to the cemetery, which was a small, family-owned one where they only buried their own. Seth went up to the gate and started shouting, hoping to get a response on the app, but nothing happened. I was standing in the road, feeling unsettled, when Seth starts yelling, "Is that all you've got?" I told him to stop disrespecting the dead and we should leave.
Exactly, man.
He tried being
It's gonna
funny,
backfire.
saying, "Oh, I'll make them show up," and jumped the gate and started stomping on the graves while screaming,
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, man. If I was with this guy, man, if you would have turned around to look for me, I would have already been home right now. You doing the most, man. Don't disrespect the dead, man.
"Come on, show us something."
I would have already been
My
gone.
phone said something at the same time. I looked down at my phone and it was there. We both just
Afraid?
stood there, looking at each other when 10 or so
Ugandan
red dots
knuckles?
appeared on the radar.
Yo, I haven't heard that in
And
a
it
while.
said it again. When I looked back up from my phone, Seth was next to me. I said,
Back quick?
"We have got to go." As soon as I said that, we could hear the street lights turning off one by one from the top of the street.
Something out of a horror
Closer to
movie.
us. We took off running as fast as we could. We got about halfway into the neighborhood before running out of breath and having to stop. I felt like I was going to throw up from being scared and winded. Then I heard my phone say something. It was muffled, but I knew what it said. Being too scared to look at my phone, I looked at Seth, who looked terrified. He nodded at me to get my phone out, so I slowly pulled it out, and it said
You
my
doing
name
too much,
across the
yup.
top.
Kyle.
I turned my phone off
Oh.
and said, "Screw this. I'm done. We made our way back to my house and had a cigarette to calm down.
Don't
We were
smoke.
talking about what
Don't
just
smoke.
happened, almost not believing it, when I heard my phone again. This time it was my sister's name. We just stood there, frozen, not saying a word, when it went off again and said my brother's name.
Bro, delete the app. What are you
Took my
doing?
phone out, turned it on, and deleted the app.
Thank you. You still had
I
it
asked Steph
installed?
to stay the night, but he refused. I can't blame him. When I finally got to sleep that night, I dreamt a muffled voice repeating a word over and over. I started to wake up and the words became clearer. My phone was off, with the battery out. But when
Did you do
I turned
that?
it over, it was lit up with the app running.
Bro.
It had a red dot about 6 feet from me, still repeating.
Yeah, you gotta fold your phone in half and get another one. The app is corrupted. It's haunted. Wait. Yeah, she look kind of bad though. I ain't gonna lie. Like the hair, like that's a lot of hair. Like, you know what I'm saying? Let me stop. But nah, this is crazy though. Did he die? Yo.
I woke up the next morning and went to the bathroom. I had a razor thin cut from my left shoulder to my right hip. I don't know what happened that night.
Dang, that look like it hurt.
Nothing has happened to me since. Needless to say, I don't mess with that kind of stuff anymore.
Bro, why would you even install the app? Like, come on, bro. Yeah, that whole phone needs to get disintegrated ASAP.
Over the weekend, about 15 coworkers
You know you
and
need to quit.
myself had our
Exactly.
company trip to the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, known for being Stephen King's inspiration for The Shining.
I still
We took
never
an
seen that
8 p.m.
movie.
ghost tour where we joined about 15 other people to get guided around the property and told stories about its history and creepy things that are said to have happened.
I still want to go
We
there.
were told to take a lot of pictures, I'm sure to try and capture orbs or ghosts. Many green orbs were caught in pictures, but I don't think anything is as creepy as this photo taken by my coworker. A little girl in a hot pink dress who was definitely not on our tour. And apparently, years ago, a young girl who was 12 to 13 by the name of Lucy was squatting in the basement of the concert hall, which is where this photo was taken. And she was discovered upon plans to begin some construction. She was forced to leave, and the night got below freezing. So she froze to death. Everyone on my tour
Poor
has
Lucy.
vouched that this girl was not on our tour. I mean, who wouldn't remember someone wearing hot pink? The man pictured as our tour guide, no one would have been in front of him. I am convinced that this is the ghost of Lucy.
Why is that blurry?
Just one more added note, though I doubt anyone would believe me. But there was only one time throughout the tour where I felt any strange energy or feeling. And it was right there, headed down to the basement of the concert hall.
Don't go to the basement. Oh, I'm glad it ended right there. Because if you would have went to the basement, man, this dude would have been a goner. What's this?
What's that? Plain white sauce? Plain white sauce makes your teeth go grey.
From school, excited
I don't know what that
freshman
was.
year was coming to an end. It was a Tuesday night when I was turning in my last essay for history.
I
left
hated
at
history
the last
class.
minute, and the teacher actually made me complete it.
Yo, my history class, that was like low-key my nap class. I will always go in there and take a nap. And then the teacher will always like slam like a hard textbook right next to me to make me jump up. It was crazy. So many good memories,
Before I
man.
would go home. I hated my teacher for that.
That class was so
Around 8
boring.
p.m., I had finished that goddamn essay and was walking home. The rain had stopped and there was a beautiful sunset. Suddenly, I noticed something. There was a red 2016 Toyota Camry right behind me. I got goosebumps thinking it was following me.
It's
I
definitely
didn't look
following
back
you.
and started walking in my apartment's direction. I wanted to go to a busy road to feel safer.
You love history?
Just then, the car sped up, stopping right next to me. A middle-aged man asked me where I was headed and suggested to drop me off.
This isn't
I said
good.
no thanks, but the man wouldn't leave and insisted. I wanted to tell the man to just fuck off, but I took off running instead. I heard a loud
Go in the alley.
noise and at the same time felt something I can only describe as a sharp vibration hitting my flesh.
Oh!
I fell to the ground not knowing what happened.
Bro.
With adrenaline, I was about to get up and run again as I felt a heavy arm grab me by the mouth. Then the pain set in. I realized that I was shot. There was another man next to him that searched my pockets.
That's that same creepy guy from the gym. Bro, this dude... Yo, what's up with this dude, man?
My phone and threw it on the ground as he tied my legs and taped my mouth. They quickly put me into the trunk of their car and then started driving. I could feel that we were going very fast, and I'm sure that we hadn't stopped at all for a good 30 minutes. I was feeling my blood soaking into my shirt, which scared me the most. I was certain that I was going to die. I was thinking about my parents and what they would feel when they heard that I was missing. Then the car came to a stop. By some miracle, I heard a police officer asking for IDs and driver's licenses. I wanted to yell for help, but nothing came out. Just then, I heard 3 to 4 gunshots. I heard another cop yelling,
"Man down!
What?
Man down! Shots fired!"
Yo, those are some savages, man.
To find me. Then I heard the cop searching the car. I was feeling joy as my pain was growing worse. Seconds felt like hours. The officer then opened the car's trunk and suddenly started firing at me.
Bro, what? Dude, why is that your first instinct, man? Bro, you open the trunk, you see somebody tied up with their mouth taped, and your first instinct is to shoot? Dude. Bro, if you didn't miss, bro, that is crazy.
Flight response. Thankfully, the bullets missed. The officer quickly caught up to the fact that I was kidnapped and injured.
This dude is insane.
Backup immediately, and it arrived in minutes. They placed the injured officer onto a gurney and drove off in an ambulance. Finally, when the scene was safe, they called another ambulance for me. I woke up in the hospital. The news media was everywhere. I was fine for a few days, but later learned that the officer that was shot didn't make it.
Rest in peace.
I don't know if those men are still alive or rotting away in a prison for killing an officer.
Yeah, I think that's where they are.
I don't want to know what would have happened if those officers hadn't stopped the car.
You would have been dead. That sucker shot out you 8 times. Why was the door cracked open? A bus stop horror story?
This happened when I was 17 years old. I would go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and ride the bus home. It was a Sunday and I had just missed my bus, so I had to wait longer for another one. I would have called my parents, but they were out for the evening, and taxis charged more, so I decided to sit and wait in the bus shelter. It was a cold night and snow had just started peppering the ground. My bus was taking longer than usual, so I got my phone out and listened to some music. Almost an hour had passed. It was freezing and I hadn't seen anyone at all. That was until I noticed something out of the corner of my eye.
What?
It was a creepy guy dressed in thick layers of clothing,
of course it is.
Walking slowly towards me. I knew staring at him would draw more attention, so I just focused on my phone. He sat down at the other end of the shelter and just stared at me. There was something off about him. He seemed like he was either drunk or on drugs.
Look at that dude's face.
Asked, "What does the boss do?"
Why does he sound like that?
I took out my earphones and said,
"I think it's delayed because of the snow."
He stared at me for a while
and you taught them too?
Mumbling to himself. He was really starting to creep me out, so I pretended to be on my phone. After a couple of minutes, I took another look. He'd moved closer to me.
Man, I would have grabbed my bag and hit him with it, man. Like, bro, what are you doing? You creeping me out.
I looked away for a second, then heard the sound
up
of
to
him
no
sliding
good.
Even closer.
Look at this dude.
I turned to him and said,
"You okay there?"
He stared at me with glossy eyes, lifted his arm and leaned towards me.
In slow motion?
Immediately, I grabbed my bag
He
and
fell?
ran as he fell to the ground.
Clumsy.
I ran down the road trying my hardest not to look back. I kept going until I got to the next bus stop. I turned around to check to see if he was there. He was gone, so I went to sit down.
He got embarrassed.
Feeling relieved,
he fell.
I rested my head on the back of the glass and waited for the bus.
And you fell asleep? What if he came around the corner and found you? He
I
did.
jolted and turned around to see the same guy staring at me through the glass.
What the hell is wrong with you?
That dude's teeth is black.
Then he started walking around the
You be
shelter
eating
towards
dirt.
me.
Soil?
I'm warning you, stay back.
I yelled in panic as I was backing up. I wanted to run, but I left my bag in the shelter and I couldn't leave without it.
This sucker's still coming.
Suddenly, the man leaped at me and I quickly moved.
Oh, he fell
to the
again.
ground
Bro,
feet.
this is the most clumsy. What? I try to say clumsy. He's the most clumsiest person I have ever seen, man. Like, this is second time falling. Yo, get a hold of yourself, man.
I froze in shock, then noticed the blood coming from his face.
He's
I
out
tried to get
cold.
a response out of him, but nothing worked. I called the police and paramedics.
Yo, he was
and they
walking
arrived
barefoot
shortly
too.
after.
They put on sandals.
I told them what had happened, and they told me that the guy was on prescription drugs. They found a photo in his wallet of him and his son. The boy looked just like me, so we assumed he thought I was him.
That's your
I
dad?
later learned that he had lost his son in a custody battle and went off the rails. He was taken away for treatment. That was the last I saw of him. I got my driver's license shortly after, and have never been on a bus since.
Yo, that's why he was trying to grab him. He thought that was his son. Even then, don't leap at me. A creepy Christmas time
It
story.
was November of 2006. I was a 16-year-old kid living in the town of Altoona, Iowa. I went to bed early one night because I had to work the early shift at McDonald's. As
I used to
slept,
work at
I had a
McDonald's.
dream that I was running through downtown Des Moines, but I wasn't on a jog. I was running from something. As I ran around the corner of a building, I came face to face with my pursuer. A tall man wearing a trench coat and a top hat. stood in front of me.
Ugh! Why you look like that, bro? Please tell me that's a mask. Because if that's not a mask, his eyes are abnormally large, bro.
The only thing visible of his face was his eyes.
This dude 9 foot tall?
They were abnormally large with black pupils, and it looked at me as if it wanted something.
It's trying to sell
After
you
what
something.
felt like hours, he reached out his bony hand, as if he wanted me to go with him.
No!
I woke up violently from my dream, and after catching my breath, I peered around my room to see if I was safe. As I stood up from my bed, I noticed that I could see my breath.
Is that
Feeling
cold?
confused, I checked my window. It was latched shut. I then walked over and checked my vent. I could still feel warm air coming from it. As I sat back down on my bed, I tried to figure out what exactly was going on. That's when the figure from my dream appeared at the foot of my bed.
Ooh!
I scrambled back to my headboard.
What do you want?
I asked, trying to hide the
Ugh.
shakiness in my voice. With the same bony finger, it pointed at me. Growing up in a religious home,
That low-key looks like a
the being I was
Wendigo.
looking at was a demon. I told the creature to leave. It just waved its finger at me, and
It
with
said
a low
no?
voice, it spoke to me.
Never leave. Always here.
I know his breath is so hot right
creature
now,
then
man.
screamed
Woo!
and disappeared. A feeling of nausea came over me, and I vomited on my floor. The last thing I remember
was it black?
cleaning myself up and waking up to my alarm. It's been about a month since I had seen the top hat wearing man in my bedroom. The Christmas season was in full effect. My parents weren't home because they got invited to some kind of event, so it was only me and my 3 sisters at home. I had to wake up early in the morning for work, so I decided to go to sleep. I rested my head on my pillow and closed my eyes. Not even 30 seconds passed until my sisters burst into my room and started singing obnoxious songs. This of course made me very angry, but I thought if I ignored them that they would leave me alone.
That makes it
This
worse.
is not the case. As I pulled the blankets over my head, I started to feel the same cold feeling that I had in November.
Uh-oh.
As the obnoxious singing subsided, I lowered the blanket below my eyes and saw the man standing in the corner of my room. In one swift motion, he charged towards me.
Oh!
Blacked out.
Y'all saw how quick that
When I
was?
finally came to, I found that my sisters had locked themselves inside the bathroom.
So they see him too?
As I knocked on the door, they told me to go away.
Get rid of that clown.
I asked them what
Exactly,
happened, and
man.
all they could say was Mom and Dad were on their way home.
He's bleeding?
I looked down and saw that my hand was slightly bloody. Holes were in the bathroom door, and a broom was sticking out of the wall. I then walked into the living room and found that there were knives stuck into the wall as well.
Ooh.
The same wave of nausea passed over me, just like in November, and I threw up again. As I was cleaning up, my parents walked through the door. My father immediately walked over to me and gave me a good beating. Then he sent me to my room.
Dang.
I went to bed crying, not from the beating. I was crying because of the confusion. I had no idea what was going on. The next morning, my sisters reluctantly sat next to me and told me what had happened. They said I got angry and chased them down and tried to hurt them.
What?
They said my eyes were red to the point where they thought I was bleeding from them.
That dude is possessed.
They said I sounded like a different person. In 2011, that was the last time I saw the top hat wearing man. I just moved into a new apartment, and after a long, stressful day of unpacking, I took a shower and got ready for bed. As I started to drift off, I could feel that cold feeling again.
Bro, you're linked to
I
something
lifted my head
demonic.
and saw the man standing in front of me. The man's eyes were red now. With a low voice, just like on that November night, it looked at me and said, "Never leave. Always here."
Yeah, he's with you forever. Good luck. But what a plot twist, though. A Scary Vacation Story 3.
During my holiday, I spent about 3 weeks in Japan. I arrived pretty late, so I couldn't check into the hotel that I initially booked, so I booked the cheapest hotel that I could find nearby. Aesthetically, it was quite nice, but it did have easy access to the building, meaning anyone could come in and go to any room as they please. Plus, there was no security in sight. After arriving in my room, I ordered some food and watched some TV. I was still pretty jet-lagged from the flight, so I started to get ready for bed. As I was falling asleep, I felt the urge to double-check the door just to see if it was locked. I didn't think anything was going to happen, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. About 5 minutes after I checked the door, I heard footsteps outside. Initially, I thought it was someone leaving their room, but the footsteps started to pick up speed. The sound started getting louder and louder, and I started to freak out a little. All of a sudden, the sound stopped. I looked at the light shining through the bottom of my door.
Why would you come to my door?
It was a shadow of
Out
a
of all the
person.
doors, why would you go to
At
my
first,
door?
I thought it was room service, but it was too late for that. Or maybe it was some drunk idiot who was at the wrong room. As soon as I switched my light on, the
Why would you
shadow
turn the light on?
disappeared. I was confused, but I reluctantly went back to bed. That's when I suddenly heard scratching coming from my door, so I immediately turned my light on and shouted.
Who's there?
You're doing everything
After a
wrong.
moment of silence, I heard the footsteps slowly fade away. At this point, I was thinking it could be some kids messing around, so I got up, opened the door, and peeked my head outside.
Why would you open the door?
I glanced in both directions down the dark and slim hallways. That's when my heart stopped. A man emerged from the darkness and ran erratically towards me. His face was contorted as he screamed, and I could see he was holding a knife in his right hand.
Oh,
As he got closer, I could see him more clearly. He had disgusting long
Ugh.
dirty hair. His clothes were ripped, and he had cuts and bruises all over.
dude's a
I
maniac.
quickly slammed my door and pressed against it,
Did you lock the
praying
door?
that the man would just go away. After what felt like hours, I finally gathered my courage and looked through the peephole. He was gone. I let out a sigh of relief and checked the peephole again. My heart started pumping faster than ever before.
Did you lock
He
the door
was
though?
right in front of the door. He was wearing a maniacal smile on his face, and all of a sudden he raised his knife and yelled,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Oh no!
I jumped back and kept my eyes locked on the bottom of the door as I backed up to my bed.
Did you lock
I
the door
grabbed my
though?
phone and started dialing the police. As I raised the phone to my ear, I saw that the shadow was gone. When the police arrived, I tried to explain what happened, and they checked the security cameras. They almost immediately recognized the man. He had been doing this to people for a while now, and the police had been trying to track him down for months. After a long night of no sleep, I finally arrived at the right hotel that I had booked initially in Tokyo.
Oh, that looks
The creepy
beautiful.
guy was still on my mind, but I thought the chances of him being here were pretty slim, so I didn't bother locking my door that night.
You out, bro.
At 12,
Why wouldn't you lock the door? Like, bro, I don't care how safe the area is, man. I'm always locking the door. You never know what's gonna
I
happen.
woke up to a big bang next to me. I turned around to see the same guy passed out on
see?
the floor with a knife in hand. I was in shock. How
taking a
did he
nap?
find me? I quickly ran out of the room and locked him inside. The cops came and he was finally arrested. Let's just say I'm always going to be locking my doors from now on.
Like, I feel like that's just common sense. Just always lock the door. Especially if you're at a place that you've never been to before. Like especially a hotel. Always lock the door. Creepy deep,
I was
don't go to
26
deep web,
years old,
guys.
And I was unemployed. Feeling unfulfilled by the monotony of a job life, I decided I would try my hand at working from home. So my days and nights comprised me of surfing the internet for any jobs I could get. I was a big procrastinator, so more often than not I'd stray away and waste time doing other things.
Is that, I forgot his
came
name.
across talk about the deep web while on Reddit.
Forgot his name.
I felt amused by the people talking about it as if it was something so scary, and decided I'd look into it. It was stupid of me to go on it in the first place, but I made it even sillier by deciding to check it out late at night. It was about 2 a.m. and I came across a website where you could chat with someone anonymously. The person I got was a woman.
Oh, okay.
She was in her early 20s and very pretty.
Oh, okay,
She
that's
sat
cute.
with her head in her hands, looking playful into the webcam while batting her eyes.
But why's your whole
I had
background
no
dark?
desire to turn my camera on and started our chat, thinking that while I didn't come across anything scary, I could befriend this pretty girl. It sounded like a better deal anyway. She told me to turn the camera on, but I ignored that request.
Yeah, ignore
and tried
that.
to get her to talk. She finally did after some prodding, but I noticed how guarded she was. I also noticed how after every message I sent, her eyes would look off camera, either to her side or somewhere behind her computer.
Red flag.
After a while, it started getting annoying, so I asked her if someone else was there with her.
I want to see you first.
She said. Up until now, I'd been chatting while she'd answered my questions verbally. I'm not that curious,
Don't be scared.
she said, laughing.
No, I'm not
This
scared.
time looking behind the laptop
Alright, I am
again
scared.
and making a face that seemed to indicate she was laughing at my expense with someone else. This is getting boring. It feels like I'm not just talking to you.
That's because you're not. You're talking to all of us.
All of us.
Who else is there?
Who's all of us?
Turn your camera on.
No.
Is this a joke?
That's not gonna make me want to turn my camera on.
Okay, I'll be leaving now.
Turn on the camera.
Her laughter was almost piercing by now. There was nothing humorous about the situation, yet she threw her head back with riotous laughter.
Ugh.
I'd had enough and moved the cursor over to turn the chat box off when I saw the cursor had jammed. The only
What?
thing that was working was the chat box, and I still had access to the keyboard.
Turn the camera on, sweetie.
No.
Her gumdrop-filled voice was louder than before, and I moved my gaze up to see her smiling toothfully at the camera. Her face still beautiful, but the smile completely fake.
Nah, man.
My computer's crashed. I can't see the screen. Sorry. I lied. I didn't want her to know I had no option but to chat. Her screen flashed before going blank. There was nothing there but a black screen.
Turn the computer off.
I felt relieved, thinking that at least I didn't need to talk to her while I tried to figure out what happened to the screen. Just then, a chat message popped up.
Open the damn camera, you...
The
Oh.
aggressiveness in the message.
Just for that, I'm not opening up the camera.
Now, the fact that I couldn't see her face while she typed this made me feel nervous. I didn't dare reply back, but then the cursor moved. I
Turn the
watched,
computer off.
shocked as the cursor twirled around the screen.
Turn the computer off.
Open the camera now.
They got access to his
Still didn't
mouse.
Make a move. There was no way anything good would be waiting for me if I did what she asked. The screen began flickering, as if a virus was causing the computer to writhe in agony.
Yeah, you got hacked.
Want me to find you?
My heart raced. Could it be possible she knew where I was? I started typing. Please stop bothering me.
Then turn on the fucking camera.
This
At
guy,
point, I
man.
thought she was some kind of sadist who got her kicks by scaring unassuming people in chat rooms. So I obliged and turned the webcam on.
Oh, now you have access
I saw
to
my
it?
frightened face
Why would
staring
you-
into the screen? Judging by my face, my attempts at looking tough were painfully unsuccessful. I asked around for the girl looking straight into the camera, telling her I did what she wanted and to stop hacking into my computer. There were several seconds of silence. I kept my stare directed to the little box that showed her camera feed, but it was pitch black. I motioned into the camera in confusion, feeling as if she was messing with me now. Then I saw another message.
Look here.
After a few
Look
seconds
where?
of staring at those words, I looked back at her camera, but my computer instantly malfunctioned, and I received another message.
Look here. Don't look up.
The
Don't
chat
look
was
up.
filled with nonsensical gibberish. She typed with such ferocious speed.
I would've
that
been turned off my
screen
computer.
rolled away with her constant messages. I couldn't understand what was going on, but I didn't look up. My patience ran thin.
Now, what is
and I
that?
wrote back.
Oh, but
What
it's
is this
gibberish.
supposed to mean? Her response came. I read only the letters in bold and shuddered. I
Look
looked back
up.
into her webcam and I fell back into my chair, my eyes widening. She was back there. Her face looked completely demented.
And she still look
She had
beautiful
a
though.
savage
But
expression,
nah, man.
devoid of emotion. But her eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. and
Why are
she
your
was
eyes so
puffing
big?
As if she had extreme amounts of pent-up rage. The way she looked directly into the camera made me feel she despised me with all of her being. There was no amusement there anymore. Her camera went blank again. Then the chat popped up.
Look up.
My heart stopped again. For a split second, there had been the same blackness, only for the lights to come back on. She wasn't alone
Ugh.
anymore. There was a man next to her with a black mask on. He made no movements other than look into the camera like the girl. The girl's neck creaked to her side.
Oh.
It looked like it was causing her pain. And then the lights went out again.
Ah.
The chat resumed.
That's so unsettling.
This time, I screamed in fright and fell off my chair. There was another man with them now. He was standing next to the girl with the original one on the other side. This man had the same mask on, but his hands were grasping the girl's shoulders. Even with the subpar quality of the webcam,
Turn off
I
your
could see
computer
the
up.
force with which
Exactly.
the man dug his hands into the girl.
He's just this curious.
Looked like he could rip her in two. The girl, however, had a huge grin on her face. Her eyes were mad with glee, or so it looked. Her teeth were perfectly lined up as her mouth spread into that toothy grin. But I
This
could
is
see she was
scary.
in pain. Even with the smallest sign of her smile fading, the man clenched his hands even tighter than before, which made her smile even wider. All three of them were shaking, as if it was extremely cold where they were. After a couple seconds, I realized they were shuddering, like trying to hold back laughter.
What are you laughing at?
And then
I
you're gonna
yelled
talk.
into the screen. They didn't answer, and continued to tremor with concealed hilarity.
What is so damn funny?
I bellowed. They stopped shaking. Within a couple seconds, the screen went black again.
Of course you did.
When it turned back on, the man no longer grasped the girl's shoulder. Neither was she smiling.
Yo.
All three pointed into the camera. Upon a closer look, I understood that they weren't pointing at me. They were pointing behind me.
Bro, how did they do
To
that?
look back, I could see myself in the webcam.
Woo!
There was someone peeking from behind me. It
Dude.
was another man in a mask. And according to what I saw on my webcam, he was
Bro,
with me in my room. Right behind
how did they
me.
do that?
I turned around quickly, but saw nothing where I had seen him in the webcam. I turned back towards the screen and, to my bewilderment, saw a third man in the girl's chat box. It
Rest
was
in
the
peace.
same man I had just seen standing in my room. Now, all three had their hands on the girl and were gripping tight. The girl wasn't laughing anymore. She had a look of utter devastation. A tear was dropping from her eye, but it wasn't just a tear. It was blood trickling down her eye socket. She then mouthed the words, "Help me," and the next second she screamed as if her lungs were being ripped off as the screen went black.
She got torn apart.
I immediately got up and pulled the plug out of my computer and back
Bro, it took you 5 hours to do that? Bro, we've been telling you to do that, man. Like,
down the
bro.
room. For a couple seconds, I swear I heard her screams, even though the computer was unplugged. The room went quiet, but I was too devastated to stay there and ran out of my house despite it being 3 a.m.
Throw the whole computer
I
in the
caught a
Pacific
cab and
Ocean.
went over to my friends, who had to talk me down for an hour before I could be calmed. I returned back to my house with my friend a day later. Everything was the same, and after thoroughly checking around the house, we concluded that there was no one there, nor was there a sign of anyone ever having broken in. I've never gone
Man.
back to the deep web. My friend suggested it might have been some prank by computer hackers, but the way that girl shrieked,
Nah, that's not a
the
prank.
terror she had on her face, it convinced me she had been a victim herself. I had wondered if I had stayed on for longer, if I would have become a victim too. Could those men have found me? Was there really someone in the room with me?
Why did they
There was
even find his
nothing I could
location?
do, because there was nothing concrete to report to the police. What I did do was throw the computer out and buy a new one. There
Good.
was no way I could even open it back up after what happened.
Yeah, I would throw it in the ocean, man. But bro, it took him that long to turn it off and unplug it. It would have took me 2 seconds. A college horror story.
It was an early morning. My campus didn't offer housing and I lived about a half a mile from school, so I started my journey as usual while playing on my phone. I glanced up to see an old man heading towards me on a bicycle. Normally, I'd step aside to let bikers and skaters pass, but he braked instead. I stopped too, wondering if there was something wrong. He walked up to me and said,
Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you.
I
What are you
felt
doing?
chills instantly. I didn't know what to think. I just looked up at him with a fearful and confused expression.
How tall is this
I
guy?
was gathering up the courage to tell him that I was late for class and I should go, but before I could say anything, he said,
Get off the grass.
Looking down, I noticed I'd stepped over towards the road and onto the grass.
Alright, you got it,
I
sir.
stepped off slowly and he said,
You wouldn't want to step on any bugs or get your shoes dirty now, would you?
he raised his finger and asked me what my name was.
I don't like how you
I
sound.
told him, and he replied,
Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you.
What?
The same chills ran through my body again, but before I could say anything, the man said,
Get off the grass. You wouldn't want to step on any bugs or get your shoes dirty now, would you?
Is he okay?
I looked down to see that I was back on the edge of the sidewalk again.
What?
This had to be deja vu. He asked for my name once more. I said my name again, but he interrupted me before I could finish. He told me his grandchildren are down the road and needed gas money. I told him I didn't have any spare change or any change at all for that matter. He continued to ask me again and I gave him the same answer.
He's back in the
Eventually, I
grass?
headed towards my school. I turned to see if he was still there, but he was gone. As I was
Really?
walking, I approached the intersection. There was a truck on its side. It must have tipped over while turning the corner.
Wait. He was a ghost? Yo. Nah, that's scary. That is real scary. No wonder he was acting so weird. You wouldn't want to get your shoes dirty now, would you?
It was a cold, foggy evening when I contacted a close friend of mine to stay at my place for the night. Both of us were only 10 years old at the time, and my parents were often at work until midnight, so I was usually alone with nothing to do except watching a television show or reading a book. My friend Alex had agreed to come over and brought a game of Monopoly to pass some of the time. I also asked if he was
my leg
interested
fell
in
asleep.
going to explore an abandoned subway station 3 miles away. He seemed excited at first, so we planned to go on the trip in the morning. I remembered that the subway dated back to the mid-1920s and became abandoned in 1932 after the market crash in 1929. I was very fascinated about its history, but never got the chance to go inside after my parents had warned me not to enter. As I quietly slept in my bed, I heard what sounded like a gunshot coming from the forest behind the house. Both of us woke up, frightened after what we had heard, and I told my friend not to worry as hunters tend to go into the forest on frequent occasions, but when I checked the time, it was 11:39 p.m. This seemed very unusual as hunters only came into the forest between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. I looked at Alex and decided to get out of my bed, intending to look through the window and spot for anyone in the forest. The darkness clouded my vision, so I was unable to see anyone in the forest. I turned around and looked at Alex again, when suddenly I heard the front door squeak open. Chills went down my spine. Both of us quietly moved to the bathroom, locked the door, and kept the light off. It was the only safe place in the house. Both of us were terrified as we desperately tried to keep as calm as we could. We heard footsteps getting louder and louder until they stopped in front of the bathroom door. And then this is when the most terrifying sound forced my heart to almost burst. Both of us screamed as the person chopped the door to pieces. It was pitch black inside the room, making it hard to find the vent, and by the time I spotted the vent, the person behind the door had made a hole big enough for us to see him. The man adorned black leather and was wearing a plague doctor mask. I scurried back to the vent, but it was too high above the floor for us to reach it, so Alex told me to go first because he was the strongest. He lifted me up on his shoulders, allowing me to open the vent and crawl inside.
How's she gonna get in there?
When I looked at the door again, the man had managed to fit his arm through the hole and reached for the lock. I quickly grabbed Alex's hand, but struggled to pull him up into the vent.
Oh!
I shouted and began going after him. I pursued the figure until I was led to the abandoned subway deep within the forest. It was chilly and foggy, meaning that I could only see objects within a range of 5 or 6 yards. Inside the subway was a pool of freezing cold water. It was so dark that I couldn't see anything. I had to rely on listening to the screams from Alex and track the source. As I slowly walked through the subway, I was now struggling to breathe under the intense stress and fear of the situation. I called, but there was no response. I continued walking through the water until the exit was no longer visible. I was now experiencing a massive panic attack. I had lost track of Alex, and I had no idea where I was or how to get out. Where are you, Alex?
Was confirmed dead? Bro. Rest in peace, Alex. Damn. Why you always lock your door, guys? College Horror Story 2.
Back when I was in college, me and my best friend Miko heard a rumor that our dormitory was haunted. I didn't encounter anything in the 2 years of staying there, so
Bro, what's up with this guy, man?
I could see why the rumor started. Our dorm was kind of creepy, and Miko was convinced it was true. One day, I placed a hot cup of coffee in the sink and said, "If this cup magically empties itself by the time we get back from school, I'll believe you." "Deal. Want to bet on it?" "Come on, you won't bet on it because you know you'll lose." When I arrived home, I noticed Miko was asleep. It seemed quite weird as he would normally be playing games or cooking in the kitchen.
He's not asleep.
I put my bag on the table and noticed the cup in the sink. I knew it. I said to myself. I started to pour the coffee away when my phone vibrated. Why are you calling me?
Yeah, that's not Miko.
I thought perhaps he left his phone at school. I answered. Hello? Hey, just eat without me tonight if you're hungry. I'm still at the store getting food supplies for next week. Grab some coffee, I noticed we're almost out. Oh, and I tried looking for that green sauce you put in your homemade burgers. No luck though.
Where'd he go?
But, wait, another checkout just opened. I'll cook tonight. I shouldn't be too long. See ya. I was confused. My eyes darted around the room as I tried to gather my thoughts. That's when I realized something.
Oh.
I was too freaked out at this point. No.
Oh. Went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Hey, I hope you're hungry.
That's not him. Pizza time? Oh. That was very interesting. Creepy neighbors?
This happened in 2009. We would fly from our home state in California to Minnesota to visit my father's family for the summer. I've always enjoyed it there because of the nature and peaceful atmosphere.
Oh, is that a DS?
My father's family lived far from the nearest town, and he only had 2 neighbors. My only friend there was a girl who lived next door. Let's call her Morgan. She's around my age, and me, my sister, and her would always play from sunrise to sunset. One day at around 4 p.m., we were outside playing badminton. My sister hit the birdie too hard, and it landed in the next door neighbor's yard. Morgan said she had more inside her house and went to get them. I felt uncomfortable leaving it there, so I told my sister I'll go get it myself.
Bro, just leave it there.
She told me not to do it and just wait for Morgan. While my sister was fixing the net, I decided to run and get it real quick. As I was about to enter the gate, my sister grabbed me from behind and began telling me how much of a bad idea it was. That's when an old man came out from behind the house.
The same guy from earlier.
Said,
"Is this yours?"
Yes, that is mine.
I asked if I could have it back. He said he had his grandchildren's old toys upstairs and asked if we wanted to have them.
No, I
Me
don't.
and my sister were very young at the time, and we thought as he lived so close and he looked like a typical sweet grandfather,
He don't look sweet, bro. He look creepy.
what's the worst that could happen? So we agreed and entered through the back door.
The back door?
First thing I noticed was the stench. It smelled of damp and rotting food. I shrugged it off at the time since he was old. Maybe he lived alone. We heard Morgan calling our names, and we politely told the old man that we had to go and maybe we'd return tomorrow. Morgan saw us through the window and immediately asked what we were doing there. I answered, "The sweet old man." And she cut me off and said
He
that the
wasn't
house
sweet.
was abandoned since she moved there.
Abandoned?
I thought she was just playing around with me and told her to cut it out. She had a blank expression, and that's when I knew that she was serious. We never told anyone because we didn't want to cause any trouble. But now that I'm older, I wonder if it was some ghost or creepy old man luring kids into that house. The house got demolished recently, which is why I wanted to share this story.
Man. Crazy. The bridge. The bridge horror story.
So this story takes place when I was about 16 years old. At my school, I played for the volleyball team, and every year we would go to a camp and do volunteer work for this guy. The camp was in the middle of nowhere. When we got to the camp, we immediately started to work until 8 p.m. This was around October, so it was already dark at 8. My 2 friends and I were sitting around the fire, trying to figure out something we could do so we weren't so bored. We heard that there was a small river down the hill from the camp, and we thought we could check it out. The problem is that it was some guy's property, and the owner of the camp told us to not disturb him since the guy was a little strange. We weren't really supposed to leave the camp, but being 16 years old, we loved breaking the rules.
Of course.
We walked about 10 minutes from the camp and finally reached the river. It was bigger than we expected, and there was a large wooden bridge that crossed it. The bridge was about 20 feet long and was big enough to let a truck go over it. My two friends and I decided to go under the bridge and check it out. As we were walking by the shoreline, we saw two headlights off in the distance moving towards the bridge, so we bolted underneath it and hid. We then heard the truck roll over our heads and to the other side. My friends and I chilled there for a while, just talking and throwing rocks in the water. It was about 8:30 at this time, and now it was pretty much pitch black. That's when we started to hear a slow rumble in the distance. The same truck had come back, and this time it was moving much slower. We stayed put under the bridge, stifling our laughter. Eventually, the truck moved over the bridge, but rather than going over to the other side, the truck stopped right on top of us.
Of course he did.
The only thing you could hear was the rushing water and the hum of the engine. Then, the door of the truck swung open, and out came a loud thump on top of the bridge. Then we heard a loud scream saying,
I know you're out there. I'm gonna find you.
Why does everybody sound like a maniac?
We were both shaking in fear. This must have been the crazy property owner, and he seemed pissed that we were on his land. He started screaming and saying he was gonna hurt us if he finds us. We could see that he had a flashlight, and he was swinging it around looking for us. We heard loud thumps as he walked around a little bit, calling out for us, and thank God he never went under the bridge. Eventually, it went silent, and it sounded as if he went back into his truck. I was too terrified to move. We sat there for about 10 minutes, and then my one friend, who we'll call Trevor,
He still didn't leave
whispered
it?
in my ear, saying that we have to go.
Bro.
I gave him a quick nod, and in slow motion, we moved out from under the bridge. We started to army crawl on the shoreline of the river, and I remember looking behind me to see the top of the bridge. I saw a white Ford F-150.
He's still
the
there.
driver's seat was the man, staring right at me with a sinister smile.
The same guy from bro. What's up with this dude, man? Bro, first he kidnapped somebody, now he's about to kidnap them again.
He even gave me a
I thought you got
little
arrested.
At that moment, I screamed and ran. My friends saw me run and took off after me. I could hear screaming from behind us. I took a quick glance behind me and saw that he was chasing after us, and I couldn't quite make out the object in his hand, but it seemed to be a weapon of some sort.
Superman gone bad.
We ran into the forest and ducked behind a bush. It was pitch black in the forest, and we couldn't hear a thing. We sat there for a while, just shaking. The man never walked by us, and we never heard him. After we gathered our courage, we got up and walked back to camp, got into our tents, and tried to fall asleep.
Y'all still camping out there?
The next morning, we talked to the camp owner about the man that owned the property of the river. The camp owner said that he didn't know much about the man, but he knows that he has some mental problems and he'd been accused of assault. I am so happy that we were able to escape from underneath the bridge. I can't imagine what would have happened if he caught us.
Y'all would have got kidnapped and touched, man. Abduction horror story. Is it going to be the same guy? The Superman guy?
My name is Josh Roberts, and it's been a year since I was abducted. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was walking home from school. It was about 6 p.m. and there was a full moon and a chill in the air. I stepped off the bus, and for the first time, someone else got off with me. I'd never seen this new kid at school before. I could hear footsteps behind me. I took a quick glance and saw the kid walking at a brisk pace. I thought
right
he was
behind
following me, so I took a left, which wasn't my usual route. I looked around again and saw him take the same left. My heart started pumping and my legs started shaking at the sound of the footsteps as they got louder and faster. I then panicked and started running. I remembered a shortcut in the nearby forest to my neighborhood, so I ran as fast as my legs could carry me.
Hey kid, wait up!
No!
Said a heavy voice from behind me.
I don't know you.
I tried my hardest not to stumble on the logs and boulders in my path. I could hear the sound of sticks and leaves being broken by some fast, heavy footsteps. My legs started throbbing as the adrenaline wore off, so I took a detour towards a playground. I stopped to catch my breath, looking around for somewhere to hide, then it went silent. I was doubtful that I lost him. I took my phone out to call the police when I spotted a local news article. Caution, there is a suspicious man on the loose. He escaped the local prison and assaulted an officer.
Ugh.
Beware, he may look like a teen, but he is in his 20s. If you see him, call 911 immediately and lock your door. My mind started rushing with thoughts, and I started to panic. All of a sudden, someone started choking me with their arm. I tried to fight back,
Yo.
so strong, didn't stand a chance. My feelings of hope began to diminish as I slowly blacked out. I awoke to find myself in a dark, damp room that looked like a basement. The floor was hard and cold. There were no windows, but there was a staircase and a bathroom. I tried to move, but I was tied up with a thick rope. Yeah, I got him. How much was the deal? 200? Listen, you gotta do a little better than that. Okay, fine. You'd better bring the right amount, or you'll be tied up like that kid. What? Are they selling me? The guy sounded
kind of
mad and anxious with
deal are they
whoever he was
doing?
talking to. Right after he hung up, he opened the door and walked down the stairs with an evil smile. Let go of me! I exclaimed as he taunted me. My arms started to fall asleep due to the tightness of the rope. He came closer to me and I spat in his face.
Ugh.
He looked at me in sheer rage.
Oh!
Then the doorbell rang, followed by pounding on the door. The guy
Ugh,
grabbed some tape
dang.
and shut me up before I could scream for help.
Lick the
He
tape.
slowly
He
backed
slapped him on the
off,
face?
signaling me to keep quiet, and ran towards the front door. I looked around, trying to see what I could use to untie these ropes. I spotted a rusty, sharp edge sticking out of the wall. This was my one hope. I successfully got up and tried with all my might to reach it. As I was trying to cut the rope from my hands, I could hear the commotion upstairs getting heated. I managed to free myself from the ropes when I heard the front door slam. The silence was terrifying. I was frozen in fear. Footsteps started coming towards the door. I choked and shuffled back to my original position, arms behind my back, wrists tightly locked together. Now where were we? Said the man.
I'm to finish the job.
Towards me, grabbed my ankles and started dragging me when the phone rang. He dropped me instantly and charged upstairs. I wasn't going to lose this opportunity. I untied my feet, grabbed the closest thing to me, and hid behind some boxes. Now where did you go? He said as he stampeded down the stairs. I heard him getting closer to where I was hiding. I bolted up from behind the boxes and saw him checking the bathroom. As he walked out, I struck him over the head with a pole.
Good.
He stumbled and fell to the floor. Crimson red cooled around his head. I ran upstairs and out the front door. I stumbled my way to the closest house, screaming. A woman thankfully opened the door. She was shocked and fearful when she saw me. The police were called and I was rushed into the hospital. They're still looking for that man.
He's the doctor? Bro,
Even to
there's
this
no
day.
way. There's no way. How is he the doctor? There's no way. What a crazy plot twist.